Did you also have trouble explaining to everybody else the things that you saw in a Minecraft movie? I was talking to some friends after I'd watched this film, friends of mine who have grown up playing Minecraft, who know everything about Minecraft. And I was telling them some of the things that happened, and they straight up didn't believe me. So let's look at some of these moments specifically that baffled me in the cinema, and I guess you can be the judge as to whether I was telling the truth or not. Moment number 1. As a child, I yearned for the mine. This is like the first line in the movie, and Jack Black's performance in this film is 100% from the get-go. I felt like I was commercial for Minecraft that they had paid Jack Black to be in. He's giving this incredibly over-the-top performance that we have kind of come to expect from Jack Black, but it is truly exhausting 5 seconds into the movie. If you thought that this line was the weirdest reference in the film, you are not going to believe the things that I will be saying at the end of this video. Obviously, this line, I think, paints a pretty perfect picture for the movie going forward. It showcases this weird connection to Minecraft meme culture, as well as providing the most exposition I've ever seen in the first 10 minutes of this movie. Steve basically gives a monologue about everything that we're about to expect, while also going through those things themselves. God forbid the audience is able to just sit there and watch this exposition, instead having Steve literally say everything that's happening on screen as it is occurring. Obviously, exposition is very useful in children's entertainment. It's good for kids to be able to be caught up, but we're 3 seconds into the film. At least give us some time to get our bearings before Jack Black suddenly starts to just spout exposition for 15 minutes. The whole opening is pretty stock standard for a kid's film, but I was surprised at how much the plot of a Minecraft movie is almost identical to the plot of a Super Mario Brothers movie, considering that they're both video game movies that came out within a few years of each other, and both feature Jack Black. This whole plot about Steve going into this other world from the real world and being transported and loved in this world in a way that he wasn't able to be in the real world. It's literally a Super Mario Brothers movie, except in this case, there's a lot more back and forth between the real world and the Minecraft world. But that was just number 1, and it's just going to get weirder from there. Moment number 2. A homemade jetpack made by a child is blasted into a potato mascot that then falls off the building of a roof and ends up contaminating a river. If you're also surprised by this incredible whiplash in terms of its tone, Minecraft does this exact moment at least 10 minutes after the exposition scene with Jack Black in the Minecraft world. For a solid 15 minutes, this movie transforms into a pretty alright Jared Hess movie. Watching this movie, I thought I was going to have a little Minecraft nostalgia. Obviously, it's a game that I've been playing for over a decade now, but the only real nostalgia I got from this movie was during this specific segment, where I just felt like I was watching Nacho Libre or Napoleon Dynamite in my teens again. That was the nostalgia I got from this film, and to be honest, it's pretty good. Jared Hess is a phenomenal director, and everyone working on this film are talented performers and actors and crew. What fails in this movie is a failure of the studio system, and I think this moment specifically showcases that there is a good movie in here somewhere. The people who make this film are trying their hardest to make something interesting, but ongoing studio pressure to try and replicate the success of a Super Mario Brothers movie is pushing this movie into a far more generic direction, unfortunately. There is a lot more subplot outside of the Minecraft world as we meet the characters that we will eventually see being transported into this new world. Jared Hess's filmmaking staple of immature adults and mature children work really well in this context to having Henry, this young, bright inventor, contrasted specifically with Jason Momoa's video game athlete, has-been guy, who ends up forming this kind of friendship bond with Henry. These characters are wacky and they're goofy, and Jack Black's opening line sets the standard for what other actors eventually will follow into. To be honest, I was really into this film until we go back into the Minecraft world. These real-life subplots are compelling and are interesting and are shot in interesting ways and are performed in interesting ways. The casting choices are great, the dialogue is not terrible, and enough of these characters are memorable enough that their characterizations stand out. Could I tell you literally any of their names? No, I had to look up Henry's because I forgot it. Will this potato falling into the river have ramifications for not only the town but the rest of the story? No, not really. If you've already forgotten about it, you don't have to remember it, because the movie doesn't either. Moment number 3. 4 separate Jack Black songs. I went into this movie having already heard Lava Chicken, I knew that Pig Step was going to be in it, and yet I was still surprised at the amount of songs that are in this movie. At this point, Peaches was enough of a success that we can kind of expect Jack Black to make songs in movies again, which is the only reason why this isn't higher on the list. But I wish I could capture the look on my face as 4 separate times of this movie, Jack Black just basically looks into the camera and starts singing, and I was like, wait, what are we doing? doing? How many times are we going to do this? It happened at regular enough intervals of this film that I fully thought that we were going to be doing a musical halfway through. And I like Jack Black, and I like him singing, and I think he's pretty good in the film, but I was just truly surprised how many of these songs I had not seen or heard at all, and didn't even know that they were going to be in the film. Half of the moments in the second half of this video, I was truly surprised I didn't know, considering how much this movie was memed before it even came out. There were so many sequences and parts of this film that were spread online everywhere, and I had seen half of them. The fact that half of the movie was still surprising to me is truly baffling. And of those moments, I was surprised that they didn't go viral. The other songs in this movie aren't as strong as something like Lava Chicken and nowhere near as catchy. But the fact that I didn't even know that they were there is the truly surprising thing. The weirdest one comes at the end of the film when Jack Black's saying goodbye to everyone and has to say goodbye to his dog Dennis and just suddenly started just singing to him and does this singing song about Dennis, about how much he's gonna miss him, and Dennis walks away, and then like literally 5 seconds later he's like, actually, you know what, I guess I could go too, and just runs after him. And I was like, dude, you just sang a song to him and now you're just gonna see him again. What is this movie? Speaking of Dennis, moment number 4 is the Dennis Ex Machina that happens in this movie. There are so many plot convenient moments in this film. In this specific part, 2 of the characters have been separated from the other group because of a raid that happens on the village. Why they don't just run towards them and instead decide to run in another direction is unknown to me, but for whatever reason, these 2 specific characters that I also cannot remember the names of are trapped in the forest. They're being chased by zombies and skeletons and all the scary things that Minecraft has at the nighttime, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes Dennis, the dog. Of course, he doesn't have his collar on, so they have to feed him, and when they do, they see his collar. I'm not sure why he loses his collar. I'm not CinemaSins. I'm not going to go into this specifically what was wrong with this movie, because I don't really care, and this movie doesn't deserve it. But the Dennis Ex Machina, I think, is very emblematic of the way in which this movie just treats its storytelling in general, and the way in which it's so keen to just throw characters into situations and save them with no explanation at all. Why are these 2 people in the forest when they could be in safety? I don't know. Why do they need to be saved by Dennis? I don't know. Oh well, whatever. I guess it's a way for us to eventually bring the 2 groups back together because Dennis will find Steve or whatever. Moment number 5. Jack Black and Jason Momoa like cuddling each other on an elytra while they're zooming through a rocket. Now, that moment might seem weird if you haven't seen the movie, and if you have seen the movie, it might still seem weird because it is. There's a moment in the film where Jack Black and Jason Momoa are trying to escape, and they're almost like straddling each other because only one of them has an elytra. And there's this very homoerotic tension between the 2 of them as they're like grappling each other and grabbing each other and pulling into each other and moving around. And this goes on for at least 10 minutes, maybe less. It felt like 10 minutes. Most of this movie felt longer than it probably is. The timings that I'm saying are purely in terms of the way in which I perceived them. But it went on for longer than it should have. This was a pretty funny joke the first time, and then they just kind of kept reiterating it over and over again. And it started to distract from the escape sequence where I'm just sitting there going, yeah, but what are these 2 doing? Why are they still doing this whole, like, oh, I gotta grab here, oh, don't grab there? It was a weird moment in what is otherwise a very standard escape sequence. Did it make it more interesting? Sure, I would have liked it there rather than just a boring little, oh, let's run away from the piglins. But I was very surprised at its inclusion, and I'm not really sure what the reasoning was behind it, especially because these 2 characters don't have any sort of chemistry really at all. And this is really their only moment where it's just the 2 of them. But whatever, I'm sure in like 20 years' time, some kid who saw Minecraft is going to make a really good retroactive video essay looking at like the subtle relationship between Jack Black and Jason Momoa in a Minecraft movie. But until then, I'm not convinced. Moment number 6. Chicken jockey. Honestly, this isn't really that much of a moment. It was more of a moment for me specifically because I was in a cinema with a lot of people and nobody said anything, and it was deadly silent for most of the film. And I was sitting there going, what's going on? I came to this movie because I wanted to see everything and I wanted to like have a good time. And instead, everyone's sitting around me like half asleep, because most of this movie is very boring, except for these moments. Chicken Jockey is not worth seeing the movie for. The other moments in this film are not worth seeing the movie for. If you have some spare time on a weekend and you're around some friends, put it on in the background and have a good time. But I was sitting in the cinema waiting for everyone to get into this massive hoo-ha about the Chicken Jockey scene. Nobody did anything. I was the only one who said, I am Steve, and I said it under my breath because I was ashamed to. Moment number 7. Chungus says unalive. Yep, you heard that right. If I was to tell you that my least favorite part of the movie was when a character named Chungus said, "I'm sorry, I have to unalive you," you wouldn't believe me. But yet, here's the clip.
Chungus, I'm really sorry, but I have to unalive you.
I almost imploded in the cinema when this happened. There are 5 people who have written this film, and I'm glad they all collected their paychecks, because at the end of the day, the studio was trying to push whatever they could into this film, and the fact that they have a character called Chungus say unalive in a movie that I paid money to see is baffling. I don't know what era of movie making we're living in where people are trying to like write TikToks or making movies for TikToks where like this movie is designed to be clipped and re-uploaded. And I don't know if that's a good thing. I guess it did work for the sake of the chicken jockey stuff, but so much of this movie are memes in a weird way that I don't even know if they're successful. They're just like memes. And it's such a surprise that like I couldn't even conceptualize it until afterwards, and I had to like, it was a shock. I'm sitting in the cinema and there's a character who's called Chungus, and it's because he's like this big guy and he's voiced by Jared Hess, the director of the movie, who's doing this really silly voice. And he then finds Steve and he goes up to Steve and is like, "Yo Steve, I'm sorry, I have to unalive you." And I'm sitting there going, what's going on? Is this real? Is this part of the movie? Have I gone into the wrong cinema? Am I watching TikToks on the big screen? Moment number 8, the end credit scene where the villager finally speaks in a human voice and is Matt Berry. And Jennifer Coolidge then starts speaking villager. This whole subplot with Jennifer Coolidge and the villager was not as actually interesting as I thought it was going to be. This was one of the selling points I had for the film, was this whole like weird romantic subplot between the villager and Jennifer Coolidge. And there's only like 3 scenes in the movie. You could make like a Jennifer Coolidge Minecraft movie supercut and it would be like 2 minutes long. And most of that's like is this end credit scene where the villager just starts speaking English and it's just Matt Berry doing a Matt Berry voice. Again, truly surprised. I have not been as surprised watching a movie as I have sitting in the cinema to watch a Minecraft movie. This movie made my jaw drop in like shock and awe. More than any fan servicey comic book movie, this was the movie that made me go, wait, what? Truly multiple times. And not necessarily even in a, oh yeah kind of way, just in a, wait, what? Is that Matt Berry? What's he doing in this film? So many of that, so many moments. Matt Berry does a great job, and I think his performance in the movie is really good. Again, the people who make this movie know what they're doing, and somehow manage to blend what is otherwise such a generic movie with some actual fun. It isn't like a Super Mario Brothers movie where it's still a good film. I don't know if I would classify a Minecraft movie as a good film, but it was a fun watch, mainly because of the people who created it, and the cast and crew who are so endlessly creative that they can't help but spill some of that creativity onto this movie that is otherwise incredibly generic. Moment number 9, the best end credit scene since Iron Man. Now you might be thinking, well, you just spoke about the end credit scene, obviously the one with Matt Berry, but there is a second end credit scene after the credits that a lot of people didn't see. In fact, I was the only person to be in the cinema when this end credit scene played. Now, if you haven't seen this end credit scene, I would argue you haven't seen the Minecraft movie. Much like a Super Mario Brothers movie, which at the end teases the Yoshi egg, a Minecraft movie ends with Steve returning to the house that he lived in, only to see it's been inhabited by somebody else. Now, who is in that house? I didn't know. I'm sitting there going, oh, somebody is living in Steve's house. I wonder who this person could be. And so he knocks on the door, and who opens this door but this person with like orange braided hair? And I was like, no. They're not going to do it. How could they? What? But like the one person missing from this film, the person who has been a part of Minecraft's primary advertising for the past 5 or so years, or maybe even more, the other person who is in Smash Brothers, Alex, is in this movie, and it's the most like MCU like templated post-credit scene I've ever seen, where Steve's like, oh, what are you doing in my house? And Alex is like, did you used to live here? There's something in the attic. And he's like, oh, great, I gotta pick that up. And she's like, I'm Alex, by the way. And he goes, Alex. And then it cuts to black. And I'm sitting there going, is this just for me? Because currently there's nobody else here. And I'm sitting in the movie watching it. And I'm saying, that's Alex. I've seen them from the game. Moment number 10. In the climactic battle scene, Henry makes a bunch of iron golems, but instead of putting the pumpkin on one of them, he puts Steve's boots of swiftness, which has wings on him, which isn't normal in the game, which ends up making an iron golem that looks almost exactly like a space marine who ends up saving the day. That sentence doesn't make sense in my brain, and it didn't make sense as it was coming out of my mouth, but if you're looking at the movie and you see that blue iron golem and it just looks like a space marine because it's a space marine, who else watching a Minecraft movie knows what a space marine is? How many kids watching the Minecraft movie see this iron golem with blue wings on its head and make the connection between Warhammer 40,000? Why do I know what that is? Jared Hess, the director of this movie, friends with the guy who plays Napoleon Napoleon Dynamite, who is now doing a documentary on Warhammer, and I think that's probably why he also knows what Warhammer is. He's probably also a fan of Warhammer if this other guy is also a fan of Warhammer. And so making this reference in the movie is about a reference to Warhammer, but why? Who else is in this movie that knows about Warhammer? If I told you that there was a reference to Space Marines in a Minecraft kids film, why is this not the moment that's been memed? Why is this not a moment I knew about going into the film? At the end of this movie, there's this huge climactic battle that is led by an Iron Golem that looks like a Space Marine. That's the selling point. I would have definitely gone and seen it earlier if I knew that was in the movie. And we're not even speaking about the other moments in the film, like the very, very end when Steve goes to, like, kill the final boss, and then she's like, oh, come a little bit closer, because I have to tell you something, and he's like, you don't have a little knife, do you? And she's like, no, and then she pulls out a little knife, and I'm like, oh, that's a funny little gag, right? Like, the villain has a knife that they're going to use to stab the hero or whatever. And then it happens again when he walks away. She's like, no, come back. And then they do it again. I'm like, okay, 2 jokes. I guess that makes sense. And then they do it like 4 or 5 or 10 more times. And I'm sitting there going, what do you mean? Why are we doing the same joke over and over again? So much of this movie feels like the same thing over and over again. Speaking of video game adaptations, what's that quote about doing the same thing over and over again? Do I regret watching a Minecraft movie? No. I had a great time, and I thought it was very fun. Am I convinced that I actually saw a real movie? No. And I still am not. If you have seen any of the moments that I've mentioned in this video, please let me know in the comments below so that I know I'm not just high off popcorn fumes and fizzy drinks and was hallucinating half of this film. At the end of the day, I helped contribute to the fact that this movie was successful, and if they make a second movie, I'm definitely going to go and see it. But a Minecraft movie isn't real. Or maybe it was. Or maybe it wasn't. But regardless, it was a dream. A memory. A hardcore world that I failed and now get to spectate as an ephemeral piece of art that will forever exist within me, and I will remember more than any other movie I have watched this year. Thank you for watching. If you like more analysis like this, make sure to subscribe and feel free to check out my other videos. Goodbye.